This session you can think of as a 101 for the real-time communication products that we have. What I want to do in this session is to give you an overview of the entire suite of communication products that we have, when you would use each one, how you use them when they work together with each other, and give you a little bit of a sort of a signpost to the rest of the sessions throughout the next couple of days as to what other sessions might you be interested in based on which product makes sense for what you're doing. Okay? So that's the goal of what we want to talk about. And really, the IP communication products are all about embedding communications into your web or your mobile app, about making communications a part of that experience of your app. And I think it's worth taking a couple of minutes to talk about why we're excited about that. Why would that be something you'd want to do? Because although we've always been really interested as a society about things like video calling, it's always been a totally different experience. Even when you go back to 1879, this invention, the telephonoscope, was attributed to Edison, although it wasn't actually him. Clearly not a real invention. The product requirements didn't get quite detailed enough. The product requirements said transmits light as well as sound. And I think they needed to maybe break it down into a little bit more detail than that. But this idea of this sort of giant standalone video communication continued. So 1965, AT&T launched the picture phone. Giant room-based video calling. 1965, they said, by 1975, there will be 100,000 picture phones deployed around the country. 100,000. And by 1980, we'll get to 1 million. Well, they got to 1975, and they'd deployed 5. And well, I'm pretty sure 4 of them were in this picture, so I think they got 1 more after this. But still, video kind of captured our attention. In movies, from Blade Runner to Total Recall, you saw this kind of experience of video, but always being a standalone thing. Like, you'd literally taken the payphone concept and added video to it. And we know that's not how it worked out. But it was always in there in videos, even going as far back as 1927, which is the first example that I could find of video being part of a movie, this movie called Metropolis. If you can see it, there's this kind of bad guy running around in this giant room that is, the entire room is this video machine, and he conveniently accepts a video call from someone. I'm not really sure why. I love, by the way, that the video on this is tagged as HD. There's like some real 4K stream right there. So that's where videos come from. It's always been this sort of siloed experience, divorced from anything that you're doing. And we believe that's why video hasn't really taken off yet. We haven't seen the pure potential of what communications can do because they've always been separated. We think that every app is destined to be a communications app. Every single app will have communications embedded into it. Whether you're looking at ordering food on demand, whether you're looking at reserving a place to stay, buying movie tickets, working together, collaborating on teams, that the best place to communicate is in the app in which you're working. That it makes sense for communications to be part of that. So much so that you know that kind of MISC folder you have because there's all these apps that Apple won't let you delete off your iPhone? You know, it's got all the stuff that no one ever uses, like tips. No one ever uses tips. We see the phone app and the messages app moving into that folder because it just makes so much more sense for communications to be part of the application that you're working on. And this is why we have these suite of real-time communication products that we're going to talk about, so that you can create that kind of experience. The kind of experience that Amazon created with Mayday, where in the Kindle app, in fact, anywhere in the OS on a Kindle, you can press Mayday, you can press help, and you will get help. You will get connected to a call center agent. The SLA, I think, is to connect you within about 30 seconds. They actually connect you within 9 seconds to face-to-face video agent feed. And that agent feed can help you with anything. I was reading a little bit about Mayday in preparing for this. the Amazon Mayday agent has helped someone propose to their fiancé. The Amazon Mayday agent has helped someone defeat a particularly tricky level of Angry Birds. And all of that has created this amazing customer experience for them. And now, of all support requests that Amazon get for the Kindle, 75% of them go through Mayday because it is just a better experience. And so in this transition that we're currently in of going away from measuring customer interactions through things like average handle time and towards how good of an experience can you make, real-time communications and embedding communications into your app, we see as the path to creating that great experience. And when we look at developers on Twilio, people who've developed things using our SDKs, we typically see that they've gone about this transition in kind of a two-step process. The first step, most of the time, is folks first take on how do we employ real-time communications, IP communications, on the business side of an interaction. So if you're doing business to customer interactions, customer care, that's maybe on the agent side of your call center. If you're a sharing economy or a marketplace doing buyer to seller interactions, maybe that's on the buyer side. And we often find people start there first because you can control the environment a lot more. You can restrict how many devices you want to deploy this on, exactly what environment, what browser, what network do you want. And so you get to start this rollout in a really constrained way. And the other reason why we see people starting on the business side is because even if the customer is still calling in from a regular phone number, the amount of value you can provide to an agent in sort of doing a screen pop of who is this person, what are they doing, what are they calling about, what were they doing previously, can be intensely valuable even if only one side of the communication is in-app. So we see people starting there first and then adding communications into the consumer side and sort of starting that journey of being all IP all the way through. So I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes talking about the products for when you're just deploying on the business side. Then we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about the other products when you're doing IP all the way through. Okay? So on the business side of the interaction, the product that is designed for doing this sort of IP on one side and traditional phone call on the other side is Twilio Client. And as we'll get into, we have two different WebRTC products for two different use cases. And so one of the things I want you to take away from this session is when do I use Twilio Client and when do I use Twilio Video? So Twilio Client is designed for when you're connecting most often a phone call coming in to a phone number on one side and connecting that to an agent interface running in the browser on the other side. So it's regular phone network on one side and WebRTC on the other side. And the other slight permutation of that is it can come in over SIP to us and then down to WebRTC if you wanted to connect to something like a PBX or an existing platform that you have. If anyone's sitting in here thinking, I don't really know what WebRTC is, I'm going to show you in a second. These SDKs are available for JavaScript, for iOS, and for Android. And it's really part of the broader programmable voice product line. So everything that you can do in controlling a regular phone call through Twilio, all the same sort of design concept of you get a webhook when a call comes in and you can reply with TWIML to that webhook and you can then control the call through REST APIs. All of that works exactly the same way in Twilio Client. That also means that you can use it with the conference verb or the record verb to be able to bridge calls together and record those audio streams. And then things like the add-ons that Jeff and Pat announced this morning, giving you context on particular recording streams from the partners in the add-ons marketplace, also work with Twilio Client. And so the kind of experience that you typically see with Twilio Client is something like this. This is what Salesforce built with us. This is what Zendesk used Twilio Client for. So you're embedding basically a dialer capability into most often a CRM interface. That could be your own CRM that you've built, which is what folks like Wix have done, or it could be an existing CRM, Salesforce, Zoho, anything else. So WebRTC in this case is the technology that's giving the browser the capability to get the audio feed from the hardware itself and pipe that out into something. But WebRTC doesn't kind of connect any more than that. It's just, think of it like a printer driver. It's a driver to get access to the microphone and the speaker, but you need something else to take it beyond there. And that's what Twilio Client does. So it gives you all the signaling, the registration, the authentication to be able to create these experiences so that you can take a call within your browser with no plugins, no software, no Flash, no Chrome extensions or any of that. It just works in the browser. So we launched this, and it supported. We launched this 4 or 5 years ago. Supported Chrome and Firefox. Just recently, 4 or 5 months ago, we added support for Microsoft Edge as well. So Edge is a next generation of Internet Explorer. They have a slightly different flavor of WebRTC called ORTC. And Twilio Client takes care of all of those differences and just makes it really easy for you to build these kind of experiences. So that's all I'm going to say on the instance where you just have one side interacting and you're just doing the agent side. So moving on to how do you improve the customer experience? How do you make it such that by embedding communications in both sides of the interaction, you can get away from these points of frustration, these moments where you say, hey, I want you to call my 1-800 number and wait on hold, and you just get unbelievably frustrated with how annoying these kind of calling experiences can be. How can you prevent that laptop throwing rage? Well, this is what the rest of the product suite are here for you to be able to do. So this is the sort of overall set of products that we have in the real-time comms space. And we're going to talk through some of them in a lot of detail, some of them in just a little bit of detail. The two big channels here are Twilio Video, which, despite the name, don't get confused by the name, Twilio Video can be used for just audio calling if you want to do audio only from app to app, or it can be used for audio and video calling. And then IP messaging for chat capabilities, for being able to embed chat into your apps. Then supporting that is a product called Task Router, which is critical for being able to compose these sort of multi-channel experiences where you've maybe got people coming in on hold and you have to handle them being on hold and you have to route the right task to the right time, and that's what Task Router does. And then there's a few other products that we're going to touch upon. Network Traversal we'll talk about in a little bit. There is yet more product announcements tomorrow on the keynote stage, and so there's a new product coming out that will help you in getting engagement from your users who have a mobile app. And SIP registration is available for connecting sort of a traditional SIP phone to Twilio, and that's a new feature that is available in beta today as well. So let's talk about user ejection. What we see all the time when we talk about why you want to embed communications into your app is because that experience of you're in your app, you're authenticated, you know exactly what you're doing, exactly who you are, exactly what you need help with, and then you press a 1-800 number and you get ejected out of the application and you lose all of that context. Let me just show you what I mean a little bit here. So here on the right, we have my phone, getting plenty of Twitter notifications. Let me show you what I mean by user ejection. So I fly Southwest a lot, partly because I like to fly out of the Oakland airport, partly because one of Twilio's core values is frugality, and I fly back of the bus in the middle seat a lot. So I can go in here, like any airline app, I can go in and see my list of bookings. I've got a flight coming up here to Vegas. I can see all of the details. Now, Southwest's app is actually super cool. I can do a lot of self-service things to improve and change my booking here. I can even go into manage, and I can do some limited ability to change my flight from within the app. But if I need help, if I need to do something more than what I can do through the self-service capabilities, there's no way to talk to a human being here. There are no humans anywhere near this experience. So to get to a human, I have to come out of the context of the reservation that I'm working on, over to the hamburger icon, scroll down, somewhere down here, there's a contact us, and then I can call a generic Fly Southwest number, which I'm not going to do. And I've been ejected out of that application. I've been launched out of that application. No longer does anyone have any idea who I am or what I was doing or what reservation I was looking at. There's no context at all. So we built an app called Owl Air to show the kind of things we're talking about how you can improve this experience. So Owl Air, we'll launch it up here and I'll sign in. And you see a very similar experience to begin with. So you can see all of my flights, and I can go into my flight to Las Vegas. And I can check in and do all those kind of things. But now there's an option to talk to an agent. So I can choose to talk to someone, and I can signal my intent. What is it that I'm looking to do? So let's jump over here on the left-hand side of the screen to the agent interface. So this is an agent interface that we built from scratch, but it could have just as easily be built into something like Salesforce. And it's a typical sort of multitasking, multi-channel interaction where you can handle messages, voice calls, video calls. So let's look again at my mobile phone here. I'm going to choose to change my flight. And so I'm requesting to change my flight. So my agent is available. Before they even answer the call, they can see who I am, what my account number is, and what I'm calling to do. I'm calling to change a flight. Immediately, all of that context because I was authenticated in the app. So I'll go ahead and select that, and now we're in a call, in an interaction. And so instead of saying, hey, thanks for calling, what's your rapid rewards number? The answer can be, when you answer the phone, you can say, hey Al, I see you calling to change your flight to Vegas. What time works for you? You've managed to get the interaction to the right agent faster and more efficiently, and they can respond with a lot more context. And now because you're in-app, you can actually interact back and forth. And this is what's a really interesting thing to me, that you can do things like say, okay, well, I can look for some different flight options for you. I think that this is going to be the one that you want, but rather than me reading out all the details to you and you having to sort of process them and take them in, let me just push it to your screen and see if this makes sense for you. So when I push confirm and send here, have a look at the user's phone on the right-hand side. I push confirm and send, and those details get pushed down into the user's mobile app. So they can see all of those details and they can review it themselves. You don't have to read them out. And so I can say, yep, that looks exactly what I want to do. And I can actually authenticate, so re-verify the credentials I provided to the Owl Air app when I first signed in. Just use my Touch ID to verify my authentication. And the agent gets that, yes, that second level of authentication has happened. We're done. And that interaction is finished. It got routed to the right person faster. They had more context when they answered it, and they could interact in the middle of that interaction. All right. So let's jump back to slides quickly. So what we used in that app was Twilio Video. So Twilio Video gives you an SDK for JavaScript, iOS, and Android. And again, it's for use when you've got both ends over IP. Now, Twilio Video doesn't work in the same way as Twilio Client. It's a different paradigm. Whereas Twilio Client was very sort of server-side oriented, and you do all of your call control through server-side APIs. Twilio Video is designed so that you can use client-side APIs to be able to initiate a call, to control a call, to add someone to a call. That gives you a really nice developer experience for building these kind of things in-app. It does mean that today you can't do things like use a conference verb. You can't do things like use a record verb because the interaction model is different. So I just want to flag that up, that that is one of the core differences of Twilio Client versus Twilio Video. Those capabilities are coming for Twilio Video. They'll be along later in the year. The other thing that that product was using was network traversal. Now this is a service that you can either use sort of natively as part of the Twilio Video experience, or you can actually use it as a standalone service if you happen to have a need for a standalone network traversal. Let's say you built your own SDKs and you just wanted to use our globally distributed network traversal services. So what this does is help you get around firewall conditions. So about 80% of the time, with just a little bit of help from our server, and that help through the form of stun lookups is always free all of the time, you can find out what your devices look like to the outside world and negotiate a peer-to-peer connection. But sometimes you're going to need more help than that. You're going to need to relay your media around particularly restrictive firewalls, such as symmetric NAT, or when you've got something like only TCP port 443 outbound is open. And Twilio Turn can help you do that, and it will always connect to the nearest, geographically nearest data center, so you minimize the latency in routing your media around the firewalls. So that's voice and video. But we talk a lot about, we believe that you should communicate with a business in the same way that you would communicate with a friend. And most of the time now, like if you're calling me, it had better be urgent, and I better know your phone number. I promise you I won't answer. Those interactions tend to start by messaging. So let's talk a little bit about messaging. The IP messaging SDKs support multi-party chat for all the same platforms that we've been talking about, and they take care of things like, how do you get the history of your particular chat session? How do you synchronize the state across multiple devices if you've got multiple people, each of which have multiple devices in a given chat room? Making it easier to do things like convenience functions like typing indicators. Is the person currently typing in the box? Where have they read the last message? Where in the message thread have they read up to? Doing push notifications when you're out of the app to get you that notification that there's a new interaction that you need to look at. And then file transfer and transmitting content, not just pictures, videos, images, but being able to transfer a custom JSON object. So that if you're building something like this, where chat is very integrated into the website or into the mobile app, you can transmit a custom JSON object, kind of as a file transfer, that can pass the context of, let's say, what product were you looking at on a website? Hey, I want to talk about these shoes, and drag the shoes on into the chat, and a JSON object representing that thing that you're talking about gets sent back to the other end where you can interpret it. So this kind of thing makes it really easy to genuinely embed chat and weave chat into your experience, rather than having this sort of like plug-in module thing that looks very out of place from the rest of your website or the rest of your app. It makes it much, much more integrated. So this is what you heard Jeff talking about ING doing, being able to do things like messaging, working with TaskRouter to get the right chat from the right person to the right agent. So let's take a look at what that kind of interaction would look like. So over here, I have an agent interface, this time in a banking example. And let's bring my phone back up wherever it's gone. So I'm going to go into my banking application here. And like any banking app, your Chase app, Schwab app, Barclays, Capital One, whatever, you can see all of the interactions, all of the transactions that you've had on your bank account. So in this case, you know, I filled with gas for $4.79. Now, I drive a Jeep Wrangler that gets about 9 miles to the gallon when I have the roof off, and I can guarantee you I've never filled gas for $4.79. So let's say I think that this might be a fraudulent transaction. Before, I might have had to have called the number on the back of my credit card and then talked to someone. If you do this with Chase, they will email you something that you have to sign and print out and sign and scan and email back again. And it's an amazingly painful experience. So we wondered, how would you make that better by embedding communications into an app? So here I can go into the transaction details, I can see the charge, and I can choose to dispute the charge either by call or by message. Now we've shown voice and video already, so let's start with a message. So it says, to start a dispute, please enter your message. So I can say, hi, this seems wrong. And what it's doing is reaching out, creating a task in TaskRouter that will get assigned to an agent. Now our agent over here was available, and again, before they accept the case, they can see all the details of what I'm calling to interact about. So over here, we're talking back and forth in our chat session. So I can say, hi, how can I help you with this charge? I don't need to say, how can I help you in general, because I know exactly what they're talking about. And we're messaging back and forwards. And so let's say that transaction, that interaction keeps going, and we get to a point where the customer says, no, I promise you, it wasn't me. And remember, the before experience was emailing something you had to print out and sign and scan and then email back again. Well now, because you're still in the app and you're still interacting, I can say, okay, I need to push something for you to sign. And you're going to sign it in your app, and then I'm going to record that signature. So I'm going to request a signature over here. Whoops. And so it's requesting my signature on my phone to confirm I verify that this was not my transaction. So I'll go ahead and sign that declaration and press sign. And it says that my signature confirming the charge was invalid has been submitted to the agent. And you can see in the agent interface here, I've got a record of that signature entirely done as part of that transaction. So everything is kept in sync. All right, let's finish that and we'll close out the task, and then the agent becomes available for the next task. And we will jump back to slides. So what you saw there was obviously IP messaging, but it was TaskRouter that was orchestrating that of how do I get the right task to the right agent, and what are the details of this task. So TaskRouter allows you to take in multiple channels of communication, either Twilio channels of communication, but it can be any channel. So it could be an email or a lead from a CRM, along with your SMS and voice calls and video calls. And every inbound channel of communication can create a task in TaskRouter to say, hey, this is something that needs to be dealt with. And here are the attributes of what it requires to be handled. What language does someone handling this need to be able to talk? What product is about? What feature is the interaction about? And TaskRouter takes care of handling all of that state of keeping track of everything and routing everything. You just give it the rules and the logic. And then when the right agent becomes available with the right skill set, TaskRouter can reach out to that agent and say, hey, you are the best qualified person to work on this particular thing, having looked holistically at the entire view of everything that is going on. So you're not making routing decisions in a sort of silo by silo of, well, based on all the voice calls, this is the most important voice call, and based on all the messages, this is the most important message, but unable to compare, well, is this message more important than this voice call? You can make that decision across all of the channels that you have. So if you think about these kind of interactions, throughout the demos that we've shown, there's kind of 3 different types of context that I would encourage you to think about as you're designing these apps. The routing context of what do you need to get the right task to the right person? Things like what language is required to handle it, what skills are required to handle it, maybe what location are they? And then presentation context of what do you need to show the agent for them to be able to handle that task and accept that task effectively. Things like, what is the name of this person? What is their account history? What is their reason for the call? What was their customer journey up to now? And then interaction context of once you're in that communication, how do you interact back and forth in real time? So think of Task Router as giving you the vehicle to deliver and maintain the routing context and the presentation context. And then for those interactions back and forth, you're probably more likely to use something like IP messaging, or maybe you'd use Firebase, something like that for the real-time interactions. The final thing I wanted to briefly touch on with Task Router is the different ways in which you invoke Task Router based on the different channel. Because there are some differences here, and this is one of the things that I get asked about the most. Task Router is one of the products that I product manage, and this is one of the sort of nuances that is pretty useful to get your head around early on. So when a voice call comes in to Twilio, you can very easily create a task within Task Router just by adding a parameter within your TWIML response to that voice call. And we will automatically take care of creating a task and associating it with that voice call. And then through Task Router, you can control and connect that call later on. That kind of seamless experience and integration is something we're working on for all of the channels of communication, but right now, you have to do a little bit more work for the other types of interactions. So for example, when you receive an SMS, you'll get a webhook that you've got a text message, and you're going to want to create a task at that time that is associated with that message. And you're probably going to want to copy some of the parameters over from the message webhook into your task to help them route. So things like from and to, but maybe also some of the data from add-ons that you saw earlier today, some of the sort of lookup additional information that you can get on someone. And maybe if this is more of a conversational interaction where people might be sending multiple messages, you actually want to look up first, is there a task that represents a conversation with this user? If there is, I'm not going to create a task. I'm just going to add this to my list of messages in that conversation. If this is the first message from the user, then I'll create a task. When you do a video call, think of Task Router as the mechanism to do hold treatment in a video call. So you don't create a video call and then put it on hold. You create a task, and then when that task gets to the front of the queue and gets allocated to someone, then you make the video call and you connect it together. And then finally, when you're doing IP messaging, such as in that last demo that we showed, you probably want to create a channel in IP messaging and create the task at the same time, so that any subsequent messages go into the same channel, and then when the task gets assigned to an agent, you connect that agent into the IP messaging channel. So I know there are some differences there, but this is, I find, one of the core things that it can really help to understand as you're building out these multi-channel communications. So this is the suite of products that we're talking about a lot on this stage today and tomorrow. I wanted to just take a couple of minutes to call out some of the sessions that I think you might find interesting if through talking about this, there's one or two products that you want to dive in deeper. So for Twilio Client, there's a session later today by Aline from interviewing.io, which is super interesting. So she's built interviewing into a mobile app, and what she's actually done on top of Twilio Client is anonymize the audio of the person that's being interviewed, so you can't tell if they're male or female. So you remove bias from the interview process. Really interesting talk. Spare5 and Porch are both talking about how they've integrated Twilio Client into their service to get more context to the people who are handling those calls, so that they can read what they're working on and interact while they're in that conversation. In the video space, we've got 3 talks from Twilions that are going deep into the architecture of what we've done with Twilio Video. So Chris and actually Iñaki as well, 2 of our lead engineers on iOS and Android respectively, have a lot of years of optimizing and improving the performance of WebRTC, particularly on mobile. So doing things like rewriting the capture engine, rewriting the render engine. So particularly if you're an iOS or an Android engineer, I think you would find those sessions interesting and technically deep. And Evan is talking about doing real-time sentiment analysis on a video feed with a partner called Affectiva. For IP messaging, Randy, one of our engineers, is talking through adding chat to iOS applications. Dimitri is talking about how our partner Virtual Security can add end-to-end encryption to chat. So you think about things like WhatsApp that deployed end-to-end encryption. Virtual Security is who we work with to help you do end-to-end encryption on IP messaging. And Billy is talking about our experiences of building real-time communications into our own service and using our own products. So we deployed web chat on our website using IP messaging, using TaskRouter, and he's talking about his experiences of what worked and, more interestingly, what didn't work, and when he came to beat up people like TaskRouter PM on what features he wanted. The new products we talked about, these are the details. I put this up here because you can't always tell from the new product sessions which one's which. The one that's relevant to engaging mobile users, which is being announced tomorrow, that breakout session is Wednesday, 2:35. And finally, on TaskRouter, eLocal are talking about using AWS Lambda to do sort of very stateless JavaScript work on top of TaskRouter. Amir has built a sort of reference architecture for contact center functions and use cases. And we'll make that code available and talk you through the capabilities. And if you'll forgive me plugging my own session tomorrow, I've spent far too many evenings building a multi-channel interaction of being able to text message and Facebook a call center with those messages first going to a bot platform that pre-qualifies what your intent is based on the sentiment and based on what you're messaging about, and then that updates the task to get the task routed to the right agent even quicker and have handled a lot of the interaction up front. So, just to wrap up, the reason why we're excited about embedding communications is the same reason why you see search becoming integrated everywhere. The same reason why you can just start talking to your Amazon Echo or soon to your Google Home. Things like seeing search integrated into the new Google keyboard. Because the friction before was constantly changing backwards and forwards from app to app. But with search being everywhere, it becomes a much more seamless experience. And in the same way, with communications being integrated everywhere, it becomes so much more fluid to move back and forth. This is Envision, which is something that kind of inspired us a long time ago of the value of embedding communications. So just like going online is no longer a thing. This is my daughter, and she has no concept or awareness of what we used to say of like, hey, well, I'll go online when I get home and I'll check my email. I tried to tell her I couldn't FaceTime her last night because I didn't have internet connection. She's like, no internet connection? How does that work? Just like going online is no longer a thing, we think it's that transitioning of going into communications will no longer be a thing, that you won't have those moments of friction of calling a 1-800 number or waiting on hold or dialing an IVR. And it's not about communications being a feature of software. It's not about taking that dialer and just putting it into the application itself, but it's what you can do when the communication is just a seamless part of the fabric, of a part of the user interface, that the communication blends away because you can just move in and out of the communication when you want to, and it's what you can do on top of that, the interactions that you can do, the real time, as you need to go in and out of communication you can, but the focus is on what you guys can build on top of it, what capabilities you can build, and how you can make that user experience much better. That's what excites us. That's what I would love to talk to you about. We take questions not up here, but out at the back so that the next people can come in and get ready. I would also love for you to fill in the feedback in the app because it really does help us get better each and every time you come out and talk to us. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.